Beautiful. So welcome everyone. Um, Last chapter, if you remember, was the very famous story of David and Goliath beating Goliath, and this is a continuation of that story. As I mentioned beforehand, there were a couple of Mefarshim who have a question on whether what is the chronological order, because if the chapter before chapter 17, we learn when that Shaul has fits of anger, fits of bad or evil, some kind of unsettling psychological phenomenon. And David was hired, and then we suddenly see that they're meeting almost for the first time. So it's not. I believe this took place beforehand, and then he kind of found out about David's abilities. So, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. Regardless, it was more in terms of in the Torah what we have. It fit in the narrative then because that's when Shmuel told Shaul, if you remember, that you will no longer be a king, and so then his fit started to kick in. So that was the point of that narrative. And now we're learning the uprise, so to speak, or the rising of David in the ranks. Okay, so this chapter 18 is the continuation of 17, where if you remember, right after beating Goliath, Shaul wants to know who this lad is. And David is summoned, Avner, who is the general. Avner brings David to Shaul, and Shaul takes him in, um, and now he's part of working within the royalty. Okay, so this is a continuation. Vahi kechalotol daber Shaul, as David, when David finished speaking with Shaul, v'nefesh Yehonatan, and Jonathan was the son of Shaul. Jonathan's soul, Nikshara benefesh David, became bound up in the bond with the soul of David. It became bonded. Vayehaveu Yehonatan kenafsho, and Jonathan loved him as he loved himself. And here, this is a verse of great contention. There are many ways that this was translated. Most contemporary Mefarshim explain that the love here is kenafsho, v'nefesh Yehonatan nikshara benefesh nafsho. What is the soul? The soul is the essence, that which David stands for, and he just loved in terms of what this person stood for. We have a lot of cases where we say ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, love your God. How we use the word love in so trivially, oh, I love that flavor of ice cream. How do I enjoy that flavor of ice cream. That flavor of ice cream gives me great enjoyment, but how do you love an inanimate object or etc.? So it's translated in a very different way. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, love your God, is not obviously in a physical way. And the Mefarshim say it's similar to here, especially because it says v'nefesh Yehonatan, it's the soul. There was no soul, of course, is spiritual. This is not physical, but there are those that differ in explanation and say that he was really attracted to David in a physical way as well. So I leave that up to you. You'll see it. Could be both ways, because we'll have again the idea of ahava, love, later on with other people. It's also interesting to note. So we'll leave it for now, but this is again, there are two different streams of thought. Vayikachehu Shaul bayom hahu velo netano lashuv beit aviv. At that time, after hearing the story, after being impressed by David, Shaul takes him into his service, and he no longer gives him. He does not return to his father's house. We had the case that he was returning beforehand to his father's house. So what's happening? Maybe Shaul forgot. It's a little bit of a hole in the story, a little bit of whoever is writing it. But regardless, in this case here, after David, with Goliath, he no longer returned home. In other words, he wanted him with him all the time. Let me just see. Beautiful. I have somebody here.
Yeah, it's me.
Beautiful. And Pearl is also joining. Wonderful.
Jay Sheor?
Yeah, we're on Pasuk. We just started. We're on Pasuk number Gimel, Pasuk number 3. So just a quick, for those that just joined us, Shaul right now takes David in after he defeated Goliath. Now he's taking David in to work for him permanently. Vaichrot Yehonatan v'David brit. And Jonathan and David made a pact, a brit, made a covenant between themselves, an agreement. Be'avato oto kenafsho, as Jonathan loved David really beyond as himself. Ken nafsho, just as he, and it's not nafsho as himself. It's he saw almost a reflection of himself in David.
Why is it in the past tense?
That's his. That's in Hebrew. That's how you say it. I love him as be'avatoto kenafsho.
Like a brother. Yeah.
That's in Hebrew. That's how you say it.
Okay.
Be'avatoto, as he loves him as he loves himself. Yeah. Okay. Vayit pashet Yehonatan et Tameil asher alav. Jonathan takes off his cloak. Of course, this is it's not just any cloak. Obviously, Yonatan, being the prince, the son of Shaul, would have been wearing royalty clothing. So this is a sign of deep respect and admiration. He gives him almost as though he's stepping down and David is rising. Vayitneu David, and he gave it to David. Umadav ve'ad charbo ve'ad kashto ve'ad chagoro, and he gave him, together with the sword, with the bow, with the belt, he gave them all of the royal clothing that he was wearing, but obviously it was also included in it was means of war. So it could have been that he also gave him his clothing, now that he was in going to be part of the royalty, or at least in the palace all the time. His clothing, he just came in from the battle. He just walked in from, his father sends him with food to give to his brother to find out, and the next thing you know, he's in the palace. I highly doubt he went with a tuxedo or whatever was necessary to be proper. And so Yehonatan here brings him up to speed and gives him his clothes. Vaytze David bechol asher shlachehu Shaul yaskil. And David went out with the troops, and wherever he was sent. In other words, now he's become an active warrior, and wherever Shaul sends him, yaskil, he's very successful. Vaysimeu Shaul al anshe hamilchama. After seeing this, Shaul puts him in command of all the soldiers. Vaytav b'nei chol ha'am, and the troops loved him. He was garnered by all who he commanded. V'ngam b'nei avdei Shaul, and also in those that worked in the palace also loved or enjoyed David. In other words, they really appreciated him and respected him. So this is part of, by the way, that we're building up here. Any idea why all this information is important to us?
Well, it's effectively building up the base that he's going to be the next king.
And also,
yes,
trying to give us a sense of character of him, I think.
Absolutely. It's a character 100%. But why such great detail with everybody? If you're Shaul, what are you looking at? Suddenly.
Your successor.
Suddenly, and we're gonna start seeing how all of David's magnetism, if I can use that, to whoever comes into touch with him is enamored by him, taken in by him. He's got, some people have it, some people don't, and David has it, and we'll see how that plays out. Vahi bevo'am beshuv David ma'kotet haplishti. One day when the troops came home with David from killing the Philistines, vatetzena hanashim mikol arei Israel lashir. And you see it's written lashur in the text, but we say lashir. Lashir ve'amcholot. So on one of the missions, when David returns back from a successful mission of battling out with the Plishtim, the women from all, as they're traveling after every city after city, the women are coming out to sing and dance in front of the troops. Likrat Shaul Hamelech, before the king, betupim besimcha uvshalshim, with timbrels, with shouting and singing, and with sistrum. So with all these fanfare, they're singing and they're joyous, and they're coming to sing before Shaul. Vatanena hanashim hamsachakot vatomarna, and the women sang and they danced and they chanted as follows: Hika Shaul be'alafav, Shaul has slain his thousands, veDavid berivivotav, and David his tens of thousands. Okay, so this is furthering, adding on to a certain viewpoint from Shaul that he has to see. So let's continue. Vayichad leShaul me'od, Saul became distressed.
Yes.
Vayera beinav hadavar hazeh, and this particularly thing, this of all the women coming out and dancing and singing, the following words left a really bad taste in his mouth. Vayomer natnu leDavid revavot, and he was angered and he said, to David they give tens of thousands, veli natnu alafim, and to me they only give 1,000. Ve'od lo acham lucha. All that he lacks right now is just being the king. Now he's starting to see everybody's attraction to him, how people see him, and the fact that even out in the open, he's given this kavod, this that where he's so to speak tenfold the amount that Shaul is given. Okay, Vahi Shaul oyen, and we have here again aven oyen et David mehayom vahu va'ala. From that day, David, Shaul became very jealous, or it's beyond just jealousy, but it's a hatred. You know, you can be jealous of somebody that has it, but you hate that person because he has it. It comes almost from the word. If you look at this word,
Asa.
Where? Oh,
okay,
Okay.
if you put
Again.
that one and a dot on top, what is it? What does it come? Spells almost like avon. Avon is a sin.
And
Vahi Shaul avonet David. It almost became David became kind of like a sinful object, something that he despised. Okay, you can kind of see it, that it's a very interesting, and we have it oyen. Okay,
So
almost
David
like,
is now a threat to him?
that's what Shaul is starting to smell in his mind. He's seeing everybody enamored by him. Obviously, from the beginning, did he see Yonatan giving Shaul his clothes, his royal clothes? Obviously, right? He would be walking in it. He'd recognize that it's the sword was a special sword, as we mentioned beforehand. In those days, it was not just troops were given ammunition, but bare and basic ammunition. Those that were more wealthy had better ammunition, better sword, better, and you see this if you watch, it's funny, but if you watch, Game of Thrones or any of the recent, you'll see it, the royalty, those that can afford it, have, a Valyrian steel sword, the real good stuff, because they can afford for a steel maker to make it. But all the other regular troops are given, regular stock. And so here, Yonatan sees that. Then he recognizes that the troops love him. The people, everybody in the palace is enamored with David. And now he suddenly goes outside after coming back from war, and David receives tenfold blessing, or recognition. And this, of course, takes Shaul over the top. Vahi mi machorat, the next day, vatitzlach ruach Elohim ra'a el Shaul. An evil spirit from God gripped Shaul. Vayitnabe betoch habayit, and he started hallucinating. Started Litnabe is giving prophesizing, but he started seeing visions. He started hallucinating. David menagen beado kiyom biyom. While David was playing the lyre, he was playing as he did. V'hachanit beat Shaul, and Shaul took a spear in his hand. Okay, so here one day as David is playing, Shaul suddenly has this fit, and he grabs hold of his spear.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why is it that Saul gave the kingship to David and not to his son Jonathan?
It's not that he gave it; it was
He had no
taken away
choice.
from him. If you remember, with a couple of chapters beforehand, there was a command where Shaul was supposed to wipe out the whole Amalekites, and he did not. He kept the livestock. He kept all the good livestock, and the king of Agag as well. He spared. And Shmuel told him from that day on that he cut God cut the kingship away from Shaul. So he knows that the kingship is not being handed down. By the way, if you notice,
Shaul.
To Shaul.
Okay. And so where does David come in, not being his son? Is it because he was the stronger one?
He was selected by God.
Yeah, he was selected by God a couple of chapters earlier as well. Shmuel goes out and meets his family, David's family. David was the youngest and almost a reject in his family. And I use that in terms of he was the youngest, he was the shepherd boy. Everybody else was older. Were all actually in the service of Shaul. Were generals. And here this little Pisher is the one that is chosen for various reasons we don't know yet. But we're starting kind of to see it now. That he's not scared, in the sense that he was appalled by the lack of fortitude that the people had to God when God told them to go and fight, and they were scared of Goliath, etc. And he's the one who stood up
Killed Goliath.
because of his pardon.
And killed Goliath.
Yes. So he literally has a heart of a lion. Literally, like just he's not when he's given a task, this guy takes it, and now people are beginning to like sometimes what do they say? Somebody who's in what do you call in Italian? Somebody who like not a maestro, like a genius in a particular, let's say, in a violin.
Maestro.
Oh, is it maestro? No, but there's another one like
Maestro is a conductor.
no, but what do you call it? Like an enlightened player, like a super player,
Word.
Anyway, you know what I mean? Sometimes that person is absolutely zippo until that person is connected with that instrument. Suddenly they are, do you know what I mean? Like they became, because that's, or sometimes it could be whatever. It could be a hockey player, it could be a business person, it could be whatever. It could be when they get to what they are supposed to be doing, and you see how great they are, what they do.
Found calling. They found their calling. Found their calling.
Yeah, but beyond that, they're we all find it, but he's above and beyond everybody on that, and he's a superstar, and that kind of that David in the field did whatever. That was now suddenly his calling. You see him kind of where things are changing, how everybody's and what he's able to do. But we're also going to learn a little bit of his humility, as you will shortly see, because I think a lot of us, had we been in David's shoes and certain things flying at you, as you will see shortly, you may have reacted differently. But you'll see. So this is
had a relationship.
Sorry?
It sounds like David and Jonathan had a relationship.
They definitely did have a relationship, 100%. I mean, so far what that relationship is, but there's not that much detail. But they were certainly had a love for each
loved him more than he loved himself. So
As he loved himself. Kenaf show, as he loves himself.
Well, they were very impressed with, and so were all the women and everybody with the prowess of David and the, you know, the guts and the unique, very unique person here. A small little guy goes up against a great big giant and nobody else wants to fight with him and he kills him. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Like the new rock star.
You know what? We have and lahavdil, I say this, but you know, in our lives, you know, we have, you know, certain personalities that just for some reason,
Shine.
you know, they're you know, they're bigger than life, you know, like there's you know, I just so I'll give you just kind of an example. And when I started, like, I loved a little bit like classic cars, right? So I started getting magazines, whatever. And one of the like personalities that keeps on coming out is what's his name, McQueen? No, what's the actor that
Steve
uh,
McQueen,
right, Steve McQueen. Remember that? Remember him?
yeah,
He was like
God.
like whatever. And if you look, what did he, whatever, what did he do? You know, like so he had a particular Ferrari. He changed the color of it, and he changed certain things, etc. And a couple of decades later, when somebody found it in a garage and realized and traced the numbers, etc., back, that sold for I think $1.8 million. This is going back to like 1970 or 80. I don't remember what the story was right now. Like, this is not recent. This is 30 years ago. So almost $2 million 30 years ago was like a $30 million car today. Why? Because it was him, you know, Steve McQueen, and you know, he did a movie. You have to go whatever, because he what did he have that was, some people just, what a persona, they have a certain, you know, like they have a certain air about them, the energy, however you want to call it. And you know, and David had it, but David of course put his life in I mean, so did Steve McQueen, and ended with a crash, but whatever, that's another story. But not for himself. He did it for the protection of others, you know, and he stood up for it. So, but he clearly had this type of magnetic personality that Shaul recognized. Shaul was no dummy. Shaul recognized, and he was threatening to him. For Shaul, I think, would not accept the fact that the kingship would not. He maybe thought that he would be able to fix it along the way, show Shmuel, but you'll notice you'll never hear Shmuel again. Shmuel does not speak to Shaul again. You will not see Shmuel again. And that's, if you remember, I always told you, since the kingships, you needed two partners. You needed the king, and the king always had the sidekick of the Navi. So Batman and Robin, if you want to say. They always had, the set could not be broken. You missed
an interesting
one.
analogy.
Yeah, you missed one. That was, you know, and I don't mean who's Batman and who's Robin, but I mean, in terms of, it's a duo that whenever they go out, they cannot perform. They have to have each other. And in this case, Shaul right now is pretty much on his own. Okay? So here one day, David is playing, and this wicked spirit overtakes Shaul, and suddenly Shaul goes and reaches out for his spear. Vayatel Shaul et hachanit, and thereby Shaul launches and throws the spear. Vayomer akeh beDavid uvakir, thinking to pin David to the wall. Vaisov David mipanav pamaim. This he tried twice, so Shaul tried to hit him twice, but David eluded him and avoided being hit twice. What this happens, Vayirash Shaul milifnei David. This further made Shaul afraid now, not jealous. Now we're having a change of tone. Suddenly, Vayirash Shaul milifnei David, for he realized, Ki haya Adonai imo. Shaul realized that God is with him. Umeim Shaul sar, and that God had removed himself or left. He's no longer protecting Shaul. So this is, after trying to hit him twice, he finally recognizes that he's missing something, and that David has something. and that is, if you want to call that magnetic, David has God on his side. So what does he do? Vaisirehu Shaul me'imo. Shaul has another plan. Shaul removes him from the palace, from his presence. Vaisimehu lo sar aleph. And therefore, he appoints him the chief of 1,000. You notice there's like, it's kind of like a play, right? Beforehand, what was it? The
10.
ladies were singing 10,000s. No, now he's making him seem small. He's now only going to be the general over thousands. And David does exactly as he does, and he goes out and heads with the troops. Vayhi David lechol darkav maskil v'Adonai imo. In all his undertakings, David was successful, for the Lord was with him. And Shaul takes note. Vayar Shaul asher hu maskil me'od. And he recognizes that every single mission, David is successful. Vayagor mipanav. And he dreaded, he wanted to almost remove himself from his presence. He couldn't take it. He was disgusted with his success. V'chol Yisrael v'Yehuda ohevet David. All Israel and all Judah loved David. Ki hu yotze uva lifnehem, for he marched before them. So you notice right now what David is a very unique character. He's v'chol Yisrael v'Yehuda. In other words, he's uniting now the entire country. Okay? Everybody, not just his tribe, but everybody recognizes and loves what David stands for. All right? That he is the leader that goes out and comes in before them. He's not sending them out, he's coming out with them. Vayomer Shaul el David. Shaul has a plan. Vayomer Shaul el David. Shaul tells David, Hine viti hagdola meirav. Here, I have an older daughter whose name is Meirav. Otai ten lecha leisha. I will give her to you in marriage. Now, if you remember back in Goliath, do you remember the story? Do you remember what there was one detail where David asks the troops and his brothers get mad at him for asking, and then he goes back again and other troops tell him what the king will give to whoever slays or beats Goliath? Do you remember?
No.
Was it a what? No. Was it a wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of his, in other words, he will marry into royalty.
Right.
And if you remember that, Shaul will wipe any debt or anything from.
I've been there that week, yeah.
In other words, there will be no taxes, whatever, no levy on his family for good. So in other words, a reward. So now we're finally getting to that, which was promised. Shaul says, I have an older daughter. My older daughter, Meirav, I will give you to. I'll give her to you as a wife. However, on one condition, in returns, Heyeh li leven chayil. In return, you will be my warrior. Ve'ilachem milchamot Adonai, and you will fight. You will lead in the battles of God, of the Lord. V'Shaul amar al tehi yadi bo utivo yad plishtim. What was his plan? What was the plan? Shaul said, I don't want to physically be the one to kill David, to harm him. Eventually, the Plishtim, right? You go out, it's percentages. You go out to so many battles, so many that. Eventually, you'll get hurt. So he says, let me just put him in. Let's put him in an arena of danger. That's basically rather than sitting in the palace, and every time he sees him, he's Shaul is dreading it. Send him out. I'll put him in a situation where his life is always in danger. Eventually, something might hit him. Vayomer David el Shaul, and David replied to Shaul, Mi anochi u'mi chayai. Who am I? What is my life? Mishpachat Avi beYisrael, my father's family in Israel. Ki ehyeh chatan lamelech, that I shall become your majesty's son-in-law. In other words, he says, wow, who am I to deserve being married into royalty. So here we
Of course,
see,
that's not unlike Shaul's response to Shmuel in the beginning.
right, right. Again, you see the humility that he's, in other words, he's surprised, even though there was that promise. David never turns to Shaul and says, "Hey, where's my reward?" He did it totally because he believed. He wanted to show everybody, how do you call it, his belief in God. And as he said to Goliath, "God is with me; I will not lose." It was all about his belief in having God on his side. And here, he didn't do it before for the prize, for the reward. And he says, "What? How is it that I deserved it?" Vahi be'et tet et Merav bat Shaul David. However, at that time, that Merav, daughter of Shaul, should have been given to David. She was actually betrothed or given in an agreement to the marriage to Adriel the Mecholite. So if you look a little bit of the history, and David did this actually marvelously, and this is why you see, when you see kings and different countries and different tribes living together and coexisting, when there are agreements between them for living peacefully. What they did was they intermarried. So in other words, now, why would you attack your daughter's family, right? Because now it's your, and likewise, why would David or Shaul attack his in-laws, right? So as part of having treaties, it wasn't that they just signed treaties, but they actually intermarried, and royalty was intermarried. By the way, this is also not such a novel idea. If you look at Europe, that's what they also did. So you see, like England has, a lot of blood that comes from Germany and this and that, and France would. So that way, that it would be like a big family, and there would be no conflict between these factions. So that's what they did. So actually, she was already promised to be given to Adriel, who happened to be in another tribe, for a wife. However, what happened? Vate'ehav Michal bat Shaul et David. Now Michal, daughter of Shaul, had fallen in love with David. Vayagidu leShaul, and it became known to Shaul. Vayishar hadavar beinav. And when this was reported to Shaul that his daughter loved David, he was actually very pleased.
Is this the same daughter?
No,
It's a different daughter.
No, this is another daughter. So
That's
this is a different daughter.
The older one is Meirav,
Mm-hmm.
and there was another daughter, Michal, younger daughter.
Okay.
So here we see Shaul's honesty, or Shaul's integrity, where he promised, to the troops, whoever gets the daughter, and usually it's the older daughter. In other words, right? Otherwise, if you just get somebody down, you're that much down on the totem pole to get to the kingship. So you want to get married to the older the daughter you get, the higher up on the hierarchy you are. So here he's offering David his eldest daughter, who was actually already promised to somebody else, but now he learns that he has one of his other daughters also loving David. So he loves this idea. Vayomer Shaul etnena lo. So Shaul thought, I will give her to him. I'll give Michal to him. Uthi lo lemokesh, and she can serve as a snare for him. What exactly does it mean? That she will be a built-in spy. In other words, my daughter, if I ask her she will always reveal to me what exactly David is up to. Okay, but Hilal Mokesh, she will be as a Mokesh is literally a mine. In other words, she'll always a inability, a stumbling block. That's what a Mokesh is. In other words, I'll be able to use her as a pawn to make David fail. And how that uthivo yad plishtim, and that he would be able to devise a way of him being David being killed or hurt by the Philistines. Vayomer Shaul el David. Listen to this. And Shaul tells David, Bishtaim titchaten bi hayom. No, 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 no. You thought I only wanted to give you one daughter. I'm going to give you two wives, two
Oh, what a
daughters.
sneaky guy he is.
Okay.
He's terrible. I
Yeah.
don't like this guy, Saul.
What?
Not a nice guy, that Saul. He goes, he's got no
No.
moral.
And not
Mm.
smart either, because I didn't hear the rest of the story yet, but if one loves him, and she's supposed to be the one who's going to be telling on him, he's got the wrong plan.
Right. By the way, something very interesting with Pasuk number 20. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only time in the Bible where you see the female in love with the male. In other words, you don't ever you don't see that. You'll see that this one loves her. He falls for her. Yaakov, Vayahav Yaakov et Rachel. It doesn't say Rachel loved Yaakov. Etc. This is the only time where the narrative actually expresses the feelings of the woman. So Vatehav Michal bat Shaul, that she was in love with him. So just as a note, this is it's an anomaly, but it was a very, very important point in the story. Okay, so she's the one Michal loves Shaul, and it's actually explicit in the text.
He could have given his daughter Merab, but like the way it is here, it says,
yeah,
she just was.
I also suspect that Shaul knew his children, right? And he knew their personalities, knew how they were, who he was closer to. Chances are, he gave Meirav to somebody who a foreign legion, right? To a foreigner, means she would be further away. She would be further away. Also, I'm sure he had a connection with her, so he trusts her, obviously. But when Michal suddenly comes on the scene, he has this great idea that Michal, why? Because most likely maybe she was daddy's girl or something. He had a specific relationship where he knew that she would never ever turn on him. To me,
it sounds terrible because he tells him he's going to give him his daughter Merab, and then he changes his mind.
No, he gives them both of them now. He doesn't change.
I thought she went to somebody else.
No, even though she was promised to somebody else, Shaul changes his mind and is promising the eldest to David as well.
Okay.
All these things are showing us that he wasn't a very good leader in the first place.
Not necessarily. I think it shows us in terms of the lengths that he would go to
keep his kingship.
Right, to protect his.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily for the people. That's because of his ego.
That's right on the nail. That's exactly right. And it just.
Yes,
yes.
It said Merab should have been given to David. She was given to Adriel the Mahalathite as a wife. He didn't get her.
No. Here, let's finish here.
Okay. Don't like this.
Been promised, but not it actually happened.
Oh, yeah,
Here.
I know.
The difference.
Playing around with daughter's life.
So here. So read. Let me clarify. Let me clarify the English, okay? So, but at the time that Meirav, daughter of Shaul, should have been given to David. In other words, when he beat Goliath, it should have been given to him. She was given, given in marriage or given in promise, or not necessarily marriage, but they made a condition that she would be given to Adriel the Molalite.
Right.
Molalite. Okay? Amcholati. Understand? But she was promised. But now Shaul is saying, no, I'm going to give you to both of them. Okay?
Okay.
Bishtaim titchaten bi hayom. Become my son-in-law even now through the second one. Okay, bishtaim. All right?
You're gonna have two
Okay.
words.
Vaitzav Shaul et avadav. Dabru el David belat lemor. And so Shaul instructs his courtiers, his closest advisors, and he said, please go and have a private conversation with David. Hineh chafetz becha hamelech. The king, please give him the following message, that the king is extremely fond of you. V'chol lavadav ahevucha, and everyone in the courtship, anyone who's in the court loves David. Vata hitchaten b'melech. So please become my son-in-law. In other words, David doesn't accept right away. All right? So David does not accept right away. And now Shaul is trying to convince him to marry his daughter. Vaidabru avdei Shaul beoznei David. And so the servants of Shaul went and spoke and repeated the words to David, the words that Shaul instructed them. Vayomer David, and David tells them, Hankala veinechem itchaten b'melech. Do you think that it's just some small matter to get married to the king's daughter? Vanuchi yishrash v'nikle. I am a poor man. I'm a man of very little means. V'nikle, and of no consequences. I'm a nobody. I'm no one. V'agidu avdei Shaul lo lemor advarim ha'ele diber David. And so the courtiers went back to Shaul and repeated and said, this is what David said. Vayomer Shaul kotomru David. Shaul instructs him again and says, this is what you shall tell David. Ein chefetz lamelech bemohar. The king does not desire any dowry, or this is what used to be paid, right? David has nothing to pay the king with. And not only that, assuming that she's a princess, and now he's offering two, the dowry would be quite extensive. So Shaul says, don't worry, I expect nothing from you. However, he beme'ah or lot plishtim. However, the Farla, this is just up your alley. This is, okay. What
don't
expect?
I don't see where he has a second wife, but anyway, maybe you have a different book. then.
Okay, so he beme'ah or lot plishtim. The only thing that I require you is give me the price of 100 foreskins lehinakem boivei hamelech, or from 100 foreskins from Plishtim, in order to avenge the king's enemies. Why? Why did I don't know what exactly is he saying here? Shaul, what's with this foreskins? What's I would go out, kill 100 men, right? And as proof, what are you going to bring? You're going to bring the foreskins, right? Okay, as a sign that you killed them. Okay, but what was the purpose of this? That would be the
To try
dowry.
to kill, well, that's to try to kill David.
Right. That would
Except
be
he
the
won't do the
dowry.
dirty work, right?
What was the reason? V'Shaul chashav. Shaul
Shehem-
was planning
David mate.
lehapil et David biat plishtim. He says, hey, now he has to go out, go kill 100 plishtim. Maybe he'll be successful. 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20, but 100, chances are somebody will strike him down. So in other words, Shaul's reasoning was to finally get rid
It's a death
of
mission.
David. And to do it in a very clean way. This is dowry. God's with you. You're very successful. You know, you've been beating. You're in such great, you know, all your missions you've been on. Just get me 100 foreskins from Plishtim. Vaigidu avadav leDavid et advarim haele. And so the servants once again went and told David exactly these words. Vayishar hadavar b'nei David. And finally, the words sounded great to David. Leitchaten b'melech. Velo mal'u hayamim. And he accepted.
Promptly, yeah.
David was pleased with the idea of becoming the king's son-in-law. And velo mal'u hayamim, he gave him a period. In other words, it's not just killing, go and kill 100, in the next X amount of time, 10 days, but he did it very quickly, within their agreed period. Okay? What does David do? Vayakam David, vayelech huva anashav, and so David went up with his men. Vayach baplishtim 200 ish. They went and struck 200 men. Vayaved David et or lotehem, vaymal'um lamelech, and he brought, I guess, whatever the sack that we brought it, presented it to the king, and they were counted. Okay. And as you said, Farla, they agreed on Michal as Mirav stayed with the other guy. So it was only between the two, but he was offered both. Okay. In any event, now David, how many he doubles it, right? So in other words, David sees it as a dowry, like in terms of a payment for his bride. He not only accepts Shaul's price, but he doubles it. Okay. How do you think that would make Shaul feel?
Very frustrated.
Right? So
Yeah, but he could use them for a moil.
that's it. So obviously he thought, hey, if I
The
told
plan
100,
backfired.
100, nothing that Shaul does, it's always doubled. In other words, it's always not only that he comes up with 100 and he actually the mission is successful. He goes out and unbeknownst to David, and he's poking Shaul literally in the eye. Not the 100, here's 200. Here, count it out for you. Vayar Shaul, and Shaul finally realized Vayeda ki Adonai David, and he realized that God is with David. Umichal bat Shaul ahevatehu, and also that Michal, daughter of Shaul, loved him. So now he sees that there's nothing that he can plan out. God is protecting him. Vayosef Shaul lero mipnei David od, and Shaul grew still more afraid. It grew and grew. He became afraid of where David is. The snowball effect of David is getting bigger and bigger. Vahi Shaul oyevet David kol hayamim. Deep down, Shaul regarded David as his enemy from then on. So we see that a really sad. You can imagine what that family dynamic was also, right? When your father-in-law sees you as the enemy, right? Vaitzu sarei Flishtim, vayhi midei tzetam. Now, whenever there was an attack by the Philistines, vayhi midei tzetam, as every time they tried to enact war, sachal David mikol avdei Shaul. The most successful warrior of all of Shaul's men was David. Vayikar shemo me'od, and his reputation, yakar, means worth, right? The worth. It was very worthy, and his reputation just keeps on growing more and more. So I see this is chapter 18. Any questions?
It was a great last class.
Yeah.
Go out on. This was really interesting.
Yeah. So you see,
luck.
Farla, I
Yeah.
just wanted, so just we'll clarify the thing with the wives, okay? So I understand what you're saying. So first he's offered him Meirav. She was already betrothed, and he was going to offer her to David as that's what he promised. He finds out that Michal loves him. and he says, take not even the second one. In other words, here we'll exchange it. If you want, keep, and David accepts. So that's the thing. But there are some that say that he offered David both.
But
Well,
no, he
They all
just,
had one wife.
Adam was married and it was the second daughter that he gave. That was the second, because she was the second daughter.
Right. But again, in lineage, the further down you went, right, the that much further you are to the throne. So it's the same thing as you see today. You know, the first born or whatever, he's got priority, right? He's automatically. Something happens to him, then you know the next ones are on. So you would, with what he wanted to convey to him, Shaul was a double face. He was playing poker with him. He was showing, look, I wanted to give you my eldest because you're such an important person, and this and that, but he's sending him to dangerous missions with the intent of killing him.
And unfortunately, David later in his life does the same thing.
Yeah.
Very similar.
That's right.
For a while, because when you have something in your, but he does it for a different reason. You know what I mean? He's doing, that's when he's giving the kingship. We're not going to jump there because that's in a number of other chapters. But listen, we learn from our experiences, right? That this is part of what it's.
Is this part of humanity? Because the Bible's not teaching us such good lessons.
I think on the contrary, number one, the Bible, which is the beautiful thing, is the Bible does not cleanse the from iniquities or from faults. In other words, the Bible actually highlights whenever there is imperfections. The Torah does not just play how great the people are, and whenever we have, I'm not going to point to, but whenever there are certain religions that have no faults whatsoever, there's not one single crack in there is no humanity, and also there's no the biggest faults of humanity become acceptable. And I know because they don't see it as a fault. So when you have religions that say, oh, there's no problem with murdering, as long as if you're not that, you can do whatever you want. That's actually part of our belief. It's part of that because there's no recognizing of what the frailty of humanity, if I can say that, and they see it as above everything. And for us, the lessons that we learn is not necessarily that we have to emulate Shaul. What we learn is what not. It's greater sometimes to learn what not to do than only what to do, because then it's very easy. It's very easy to do just what. No, sometimes when we get into and that's exactly the point, Miriam, that you made with David is for all that fall, David falls into similar errors. Like he also didn't really, as great as he was, he also falls in a different way, because he knew that the kingship would continue through him, the royalty, but to whom it was, that was the point of contention. And and he had whatever, he had a favorite, or he had somebody who he was trying to groom, who he thought it was, but in this case here, Shaul is trying to fight fate, and every once in a while when he has. Pardon?
It seems like here it's okay for him to not be a man of his word. With the first person, if you promised your daughter to somebody, there must have been some agreement between the tribes there that he's breaking.
Right.
Isn't there a repercussion?
But remember, Esther, Saul's already out. He's already lost everything as it is.
No, I know that, but he's still doing he knows David is taking over because of his abilities, and that's why the people like him. But Saul is promising a wife, the first one, when he's already promised this to somebody else, and it seems like there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Well,
So-
it's showing that, I think it's showing that Saul is looking for desperately trying to change the
Yeah, I
situation
see
that he
that,
can't.
but that's
Yeah,
not the point
so-
I'm trying to make.
I think right. So I think that's again the humanity that we see, and Michael actually is 100% right. You know, he's looking at all the cards on the table, and what is his ace, or what is his the best card that he has that he can maneuver at this time. He realizes that if he psychologically falls in and says, "That's it, I recognize that God is not, you know, the kingship is gone from me." Now, when we say that the kingship is not being passed, he doesn't know whether that means that Shaul will live out his days as king, and then there'll be another king, and whoever that is, he hopes it's his son, maybe not. For Shaul, he also thinks that David is taken over now, or tomorrow, or the next day.
Yeah.
Understand?
He's a
So,
very, he's a
so it's a
very
v-
insecure man. I mean,
Are-
he's a very insecure man, and
100%.
his reign wasn't ideal either. So he didn't do
But-
such a good job.
So
I guess-
now we know, so this discussion that we had is prime to understanding what his, I don't say curse, or what Shmuel told him that God has taken out of that even as a king, he did not enjoy his throne, if I can say it that much.
Yeah, He
You know
didn't
what I mean?
feel,
In other words,
yes, you're
in other
right.
words, he ascended to the top of the food chain, of the human food chain, let's say, if we want to look at that. And at the top, every day he was miserable. Every single day he was miserable. And to that point, Esther, that had nothing to do with whether his word or not, but he sees it as playing his cards right, that maybe this hand he wins and buys him a little bit longer time. He does not know that he has the kingship until his days. He sees David coming after him, or for the kingship, any day. So he's right now he doesn't care about that that Adriel guy and that his family, that they're going to start a
No,
war.
but he's very insecure, and whatever he's
100%.
and he's trying to do whatever he can to save his place. But the
Exactly.
end, but it's also saying that the
Not to let anyone else succeed.
the end, to get to the end, they justify whatever it is to do it.
Listen, it's it's your biggest you want to eliminate your biggest competitor, right? And that's
Yeah.
and he recognizes David is his
Biggest
biggest competitor. And maybe if David is out, maybe a couple of more years they'll find another guy or whatever. But whoever is gonna, but he clearly sees Shaul is no dum-dum. Shaul sees him as being, and he says it in his own words. He said the only thing it's missing is being king.
Yeah.
But he recognizes that somebody, or God, or through David is being groomed for this position, or so he's trying to slow that pace or cut it off to begin with. Understand how by eliminating him, and if that means breaking his word with the other guy, so be it. That's what happens
Yeah,
sometimes in
it's-
life, because the best card for him to play, for him to get rid of David, was that plan of giving it to him, and then understand, seeing how that is, and giving him in terms of the dowry. But it backfires. And then he recognizes, it's the second time he recognizes that God is with David. Understand? Well, it's actually the third time, because he tried twice to kill him with the spear.
No.
And this is the third time that he basically tries to kill him again through his mission, but he comes back.
So violent. Oh my God, I can't
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
this man. He almost like gives up his daughters, doesn't think of their feelings. He's killing David every day, and then he doesn't want anyone to succeed because he's feeling so insecure about his past.
That's right through history, across the countries, everywhere
Yeah.
that happens.
Really bad guy. I'm telling you. No, he's like another Trump.
But listen, but it's not true. Shaul actually, the fact when he hears that Michal loves David, then he wants to use that. So in other words, he does placate to his daughter's feelings, but he uses it
To
for
his
his own benefit. In other words, he uses it as he warps it, but it's not that he's rewarding, and I'm sure Michal was delighted. I mean, she's she's the one who won the jackpot. But in terms of what, so that no,
But
but I
she
think this is
She uses him to get the Philistines to be against him.
right. But that again, that's part of that. That's the undercurrent. That's the reason David sees it as becoming his son-in-law, marrying into royalty, while Shaul, on the other hand, sees it as a way of giving him a mission that perhaps will kill him. Miriam had a question?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I have to leave.
Okay.
So I'll see you
Miriam,
in September.
have a great summer. We'll
Thank
see
you.
God willing in a couple of months, okay?
Thank you.
Any
Bye.
other questions, any remarks?
So Yossi, you will get back to us in the early fall about starting up again?
Yes. So God willing, early September or at the end of August,
Mhm.
I will let you know. If I'm not mistaken, as I said, I think around the 16th or so is when I'll and if Peter says so maybe then the following week, whatever, sometime in mid end of September, God willing, we will start.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Everybody be well and have a great summer.
Well,
Great
wait,